What's up, YouTube? Brett Ever from Rants here. Alright, so this is going to be our Cowboy Bebop Netflix series review here on Us. Overall, fans have not liked this. Fans and critics alike. Which, for once, fans and critics both have something to agree upon, and that this Cowboy Bebop is trash. Now, I just got done finishing the series, and I will say, overall, my emotions on it is kind of uh mixed, I guess you could say. I feel like the characters and the actors and actresses that played those characters did a really good job. But the problem is they did a really good job of making it their own. This feels like Cowboy Bebop in name only in a lot of ways. And it's just, and the acting at time was spot on. The acting at other times felt really like they were reading off cue cards. But overall, I don't really have a problem with the cast. I have a problem with the direction that they went with the characters. Take John Cho, for instance. Thought he did a great job as Spike Spiegel. I thought he did a great job as his version of Spike. But did it live up to the version that it was in the anime? Was he anything even remotely like the anime version of himself? No, he was not. This was a completely different version all the way around. And, you know, for what he made of it, I thought he did a good job. But if you're staying true to the true rendition, then no, he was nothing like what he was supposed to be. Now, as far as Daniela Panetta's Faye Valentine, look, Faye Valentine was a seductress. That's what, kind of like I won't say a nihilist, but a seductress that really just didn't care as long as she got what she wanted. She was very selfish in that way. Now, some of that was brought out in this version, but the whole seductress aspect of it was just completely and totally thrown out. Her costume looked really stupid too. I mean, by far the dumbest look on this show was her. Um, she reminded me of a, a foul mouthed Carmen Sandiego in a lot of ways. That's the version that I got from Faye Valentine, or Daniela Panetta's version of Faye Valentine. Of course, it didn't help that she like took on fans, calling them trolls, just really not liking them because they didn't like the way she looked on the show, which I thought was unfair to fans. Fans just want a true rendition of the show that they grew up with, watching as an anime. They want the live action version to fit similar to what the anime is, and there's nothing wrong with fans for wanting that. But fans didn't get that with this. Now, as far as Jet Black is concerned, he to me was the worst actor of all the three. Jet and Spike's dialogue between each other was just horrendous at times. Really kind of dirty in like a not cool way. Like they had a lot of inside jokes that didn't really, I felt like, fit or didn't land when it comes to the jokes that they were trying to pull off. I didn't really like the dialogue between the two. As far as the way the show looked, I thought overall the CGI was pretty poor, except for the ships. I thought they did a really good job with the spaceships. They looked really cool. They looked really neat. But after that, it just kind of felt like a late 90s, early 2000s look to it. Felt like they could have done maybe more with the CGI than what they did. As far as the story is concerned, each episode was hit or miss for me. There was things I loved about each episode, and there was things that I hated about it. A lot of it had to do with I didn't really enjoy the dialogue. The back and forth between the characters just didn't work with me in a lot of ways. But overall, the story, the concept of what they were trying to do, catching a bounty, and so forth, was interesting. The villains in it were interesting but basic in a lot of different ways. And that really all just kind of starts with Vicious. Vicious is supposed to be, the part of the syndicate that we learn the most about. His relationship with Spike kind of grew, like you learned a lot more about it, but it didn't really feel like, a nemesis take on what it should have been. And of course, it all led up to the, final altercation, which I thought was decent. But overall, I just felt like the two of them didn't fit well as adversaries together. But overall, I did enjoy Vicious. He brought us a lot of the little bit of brutality that we got to see in this show, and I did really enjoy that aspect of it. He's the only one that I ever really truly felt like, okay, he might do something spontaneous that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Besides that, none of the other characters actually did that. Chet, I felt like Jet got stuck in this story about his family, about his ex, that really wasn't really that interesting. The whole thing about the dog I didn't enjoy. As far as Spike is concerned, I thought the flashbacks, they did them terribly, terribly in this show. And it just like kept going and going and going. And you know what? Flashbacks can be used well. But unfortunately, and sometimes flashbacks can tell you a lot about the story that is going on. Give it some, a good backstory. I felt like the flashbacks in this were just really poorly constructed, very vague. I knew absolutely nothing for most of it, of what was going on. There really wasn't. You could piece together kind of what was going on, but it wasn't interesting. So I'm like, stop with the flashbacks. I didn't enjoy that aspect of it. Now, as far as dialogue is concerned, I've complained a lot about it in this review, but I did enjoy Spike and Faye's kind of back and forth to a certain extent. I thought that actually did work. But overall, I feel like the story had some bite to it, was interesting. Some of the minor villains that they brought in, if they were fleshed out a little bit more, could have really been a great villain of the week kind of scenario, a villain of the episode. And some of them managed to pique my interest, while others was like, you know what? It would have been good if they would have fleshed it out a little bit more, but I see where it was going, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. But overall, I felt like the stories throughout the 10 episodes was decent. It was decent. I felt like the character progression kind of stayed the same throughout. I felt like the character dialogue was very poor. I felt like the CGI in a lot of areas was incredibly poor. I did not enjoy any of them going to different scenes because it kind of felt like we had gone over there. It felt like rehashed scenes were just kind of replaced with some of the things in it, and then that's the exact scene. That's the way I felt towards a lot of this show, in the scenes and the new places that they went into. So overall, I feel like that was a problem. Um, the characters making it their own in any other aspect would have been good, but they were trying to do callbacks to the anime while also trying to be on their own. And I felt like that didn't work in this show. I felt overall them, John Cho's Spike Spiegel was good in a Netflix version of it, but if you're trying to call back to the original anime, it was a terrible, terrible version of that particular character. The same can be said for Faye Valentine. I felt like she was very lacking in this show in a lot of different ways. Like I said, she reminded me of a foul mouth Carmen Sandiego in so many different ways. She looked so out of place in there. She was clearly in there for like some kind of like comedy to it, and I felt like it just didn't hit. Overall, I would give this maybe a 6 out of 10, simply because I want to give it a 5 out of 10, but I would give it a 6 out of 10 simply because, like I said, they do their own versions of these characters in this show. And look, if you like that and you don't want to call back to the original anime, you might actually think that this show is worth a go. If you are a die-hard fan of Cowboy Bebop, you might also think, okay, you know what? This show is worth trying out. But as far as season one of this show, I would give it a barely a 6 out of 10. I thought the CGI was terrible except for the spaceships. I thought the dialogue was below average. I didn't feel a connection with any of these characters. I didn't like that they tried to do their own version of these characters. I wish they'd have stayed more true to what the anime actually was. And as far as the adversaries in this, the Nemesis version in Vicious, I felt like between Spike and Vicious being adversaries, it didn't work for me. There just wasn't enough there. There wasn't enough of the syndicate for me to really get a good sense of how diabolical they actually were. They kept acting like, oh, well, if you cross the syndicate, you're dead. Well, they never really truly showed us how vicious the syndicate actually was. So they looked like maybe C-rated villains basically throughout this. But that's about all my take on Cowboy Bebop's Netflix series. Um, you know what? If you're a fan of the show or a fan of the anime, give it a shot. See if you like it. But a lot of fans, look, have given it a terrible score. You might be one of the 50% that enjoyed it. You might be some of the 50% that hated it. I think it's worth a watch. But just go in there without high expectations, is all I'm saying. But anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you think of Netflix's version of live action version of Cowboy Bebop? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Y'all take care.